Today, my guest is Jane Macnaught. She's the founder of Tranquillo Place, a trauma-informed counselling practice in Mona Vale. Her team provides counselling, massage and naturopathy services. After relocating to the Adelaide Hills, Jane continues to offer counselling there and occasionally in Sydney. Jane uses an eclectic and creative approach to her work, drawing on her extensive training and experience in trauma recovery, anxiety, stress, grief, and loss. She is a lifelong learner with recent professional development in subtle energetics in yoga, polyvagal theory, heart rate variability, brain spotting, and internal family systems. She also completed a 350-hour yoga teacher training in 2020, focusing on trauma-sensitive nervous system soothing practices. Jane's therapeutic style is body-focused and trauma-informed, incorporating polyvagal theory and yoga. She offers counselling and supervision both in person and online, and hosts support groups, training sessions and grief conversations for community members and practitioners. Known for her creative, holistic and gentle approach, Jane is dedicated to advancing trauma-informed practices and fostering a wholehearted life. Hi, Jane.
Hi, Kate.
How are you today?
I'm pretty good. I'm keeping cozy in here. It's pretty cool outside in the drizzly weather, but yeah, I'm really well, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. You have led such an interesting life up until you became a trauma counsellor. So would you like to share more around that?
Ooh, where would I begin?
When you were 16.
At 16. Well, I got my first job just before I turned 14.
Right.
And that was cooking in a little local restaurant. My mum had been bragging about my cooking abilities in the local newsagent, actually, and this woman overheard and said, I need a young cook. So Dad and I went after school, baking breads and making gravies and soups and
Wow.
for the restaurant. Yeah, I loved it.
Awesome. Wow. Did you become a chef after that, or what happened after that?
Yeah, it took a while for me to turn that into my passion for cooking into like a career, I guess. I was 30 when I trained. I had two little ones and decided that I would pursue the passion of cooking in a sort of professional sense. Yeah, I did a commercial cookery certificate.
Wow. Oh gosh. That was industrious. That's a hard job.
Really hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was really quite difficult to study it because I was quite a proficient cook. I can kind of cook. Yeah, it comes easy to me.
Yeah.
And I can cook most things, I guess. But going into the rigor of the commercial cookery where you had to cook in neat straight lines so they were training you for 5-star hotel production.
Wow.
And so everything needed to be exactly the same and pursuit of sort of excellence. And so it undid a lot of my instinctive cooking styles to perform to head chefs. You're aspiring to the the sort of stuff you see in 5-star hotels, which can be kind of not really the sort of food that perhaps we all love to eat, but we admire. Yeah.
Yes.
But I did the graduation speech for the class that year.
Wow.
And it was a really great and fun experience.
Yeah. Gee. So you had to unlearn.
Yeah, and that was what I spoke about, I think, was, so if you think that you're proficient at something, but it's a bit like when people say they want to employ someone that maybe hasn't had a lot of experience in that area because they want to train them to be, to do it their way. And that was what happened there. And I mean, I failed egg cookery, which was really embarrassing. So, oh God, because we had to every egg needed to look identical, and I was kind of a bit flamboyant in the kitchen and sort of throw things together, but that wasn't how they wanted it. So yeah, I had to redo the egg cookery part. It was very tricky.
Oh, wow. That's
Which
so
always seems so
funny.
funny. Yeah, all the
Yeah,
basics.
yeah. Wow. So all the other stuff that you did, was that in between 14 and 30, or what was all the other stuff that
So I had quite a natty business mind. So right through high school, I was always trying to work out how I could produce things to make money. So if I ran a party, we would sell tickets for the party, not just, everything was, I don't know, just trying to do things. I wasn't thinking about making money, but just producing and being entrepreneur. So my first my first business was called Rent an Event.
Oh,
So I went to what used to be the Kringai CAE,
yeah.
and I did the course in recreation and leisure studies.
Gosh.
Before I did that, the year before, my dad told me I had to do business studies because I had a business head. So I went and enrolled in first year Bachelor of Business, and it was dry and boring. And so he was quite assertive back in the day. Parents were pretty bossy. And he said, well, if you're not going to do that, you have to do something. And quite obstinately, I was flicking through the handbook and for all the different courses that one could do, and out popped this one on recreation. I went, well, that sounds like fun. I'll do it. No idea really what I was stepping into. And it was a really good course.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was back in the, so we're early 80s, showing my age. And there was this idea of the leisure age. So as the technologies, the computers were getting smaller, there was this big fear that there was going to be all these people with nothing to do, and that they would need like an army of recreation officers moving into community centres to entertain people with all their leisure time.
Right. Did that happen?
Oh, well, look at us. No, it never happened. So most of the people that pursued that career ended up in working for councils or aged care. And whereas I set up this little business called Rent an Event, where we provided games and activities for really large groups of kids.
Yeah.
And the Life Be In It games were a big thing, and we
wow.
were the provider. It was the three of us went into partnership, and we did that for about 3 years, and that got us through uni. So it
Wow.
paid our way, and yeah, we employed all our friends, and it was super fun.
Yeah. And then what did you do after that?
I fell in love.
Oh,
I
okay.
went overseas and came back and married and had a baby straight away. I was pregnant at 24. I have 3 older sisters who all took a long time to get pregnant, so I didn't realize it could be so quick.
Instant.
And
Yeah.
so I had 3 children by the time I turned 30.
Oh, wow.
3 little boys.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Wow.
An unsuccessful marriage. A pretty diabolical. I went in to that relationship with my playful side very activated, which was all about moving away from a very strict Catholic upbringing into something that was more flamboyant and exciting, and soon learned that flamboyant and exciting and interesting became my daily nightmare. So I was married for about 11, 12 years.
Yeah. Wow.
And then and during that time, oh my goodness, I was very busy. So I had the 3 boys, but when I did that commercial cookery course at 30, which was just before my third was born, so then I had a new baby and I had this new qualification. So I set up a catering business, and catering felt a bit easier because I wasn't going to be on a roster and away from my babies, and I could kind of work from home back in the days when you set up a commercial kitchen at home. But that was a started out just as this little thing, but it actually became quite big because some of the products that I produced in catering, people asked if they could have slabs of, like
Right.
quite big quantities. And then to sell the quantity of, my first product was called Panforte, which is a beautiful Italian cake made with, the way I made it was with lots of chocolate and glacé fruit. So it was a very delicious, dense, long shelf life product. As people got wind of the fact that they could order it in bulk from me, then I need to package it, and then I needed to label it. And once I went into that, it became this snowball of, oh my goodness, to get the labels at a cheap price, I need to print lots of them, and then I need a box to put them in, and then I had to get a whole lot made, and then I needed to sell more to pay for the boxes. And anyone that's set up a small business will know, or of production, that it starts to become this little runaway train where you're, yeah.
Yes. Overwhelmed by that side of it.
But I was very excited by it, and very, I was living in South Australia at the time, and I became part of the South Australian, the budding food industry over here in the gourmet sense. So it was in the days when the all famous Maggie Beer was just starting out.
Wow.
And she was part of a food network that I had set up. So that's, yeah, I ended up getting on the Premier's Food Advisory Council and being runner-up businesswoman of the year in South Australia. And oh my goodness, all these things were going on. It was really, really intense and fun and exciting. And then my marriage broke down, and it was I had to step out of that, and things started to tumble into a really different direction.
Right. Wow. So then you closed the business?
Yeah. I sort of merged it with another like-minded business owner who I tried to stay in partnership in that, but I was pretty burnt out, and so I stepped out of it and just went back to simply cooking, which is what I loved.
Yeah. So cooking at home, or did you work for someone?
At that point, I was a single parent, and I had to work for people. So I had a chef that I worked for, and he had a catering business, and he also worked in a lot of big wineries in Barossa Valley, and we did some fine dining festivals. So I'd work like 10 days straight and then have a month off, and I just did this sort of kind of wacky work routine for some years while I worked out what I really wanted to do.
And what did you really want to do?
Make money.
Yeah.
It was all about making money. The kids were in upper primary school. I had full custody of the children. I had no support from their father at all. It was a pretty tough time for me.
Yeah.
And some people, maybe 3 people, suggested to me this idea that sounded totally odd, but they said you'd be really good at real estate.
Oh, okay.
I said, I don't even know what like north and south is. I don't even know like anything about houses, but it turned out I was quite good at real estate.
Yeah.
So I did that for about 5 years.
Oh, wow.
I sold houses and took my kids to Bali and paid off lots of debts. And I made quite a good amount of money in real estate, but it didn't do great things for my soul. It was, but I did meet my second husband at work.
Right.
So real estate gave me a complete upgrade in relationship,
Yeah.
and we've been married 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And so that was a big turnaround in that, what
Yeah.
that job gave me as well. It levered me out of poverty and into a better lifestyle, and a new relationship.
Yeah. Awesome. So then, okay, so that was the next 5 years. Then what did you do?
Then I suffered grief. My
Oh,
mum died and my sister died. Ooh, still
oh,
touches me.
wow. Yeah.
so that was so that was the tail end of my real estate career, was flying to Townsville, to where my sister was, flying to Brisbane. We ran a roster. I've got a big family. I've got 4 brothers and 4 sisters.
Oh, gee, yes.
And here we have number 3 from the top. I'm number 8, but number 3, my late sister Anne was in late stages of lymphoma cancer, and we held hope for her at that through that last year. She had it for 10 years, and then the last year was the fight.
Wow.
And we all thought that she would pull through, and we made sure that one of us was always with her. And so we had a roster of mainly the sisters flying in to be there for her and cook for her and look after her and help her with her family. And
wonderful.
But then she died in May, and then Mum died in September.
Wow, gee.
And that was, really heartbreaking time.
Yeah. Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, it's terrible losing a sibling and a parent. Like, it's,
Yeah.
because I know a sibling hit me. My next sister down died from me as well. And it's just it's very strange. Yeah. Yeah. So
And it changed the family structure a lot. Of
yeah.
course, and then my father had already died some years earlier.
Right.
When I was in my mid-30s, Dad died.
Yeah.
One of the things of being in a big family and being one of the younger ones is that the parents they're older and they don't live longer.
Yeah.
So so Mum saw, we had to sell the family home and all those things. So it was a really big transition year.
Yeah.
And through that time, I stopped working. I decided that I didn't want to do, well, I inherited some money as well. So I was able to just, sort out the mortgage a bit. And but I was living in a household with 5 children. So my 3 and my 2 stepchildren.
Oh, right.
And I also had another niece, a great niece, living with us, and a girlfriend of one of the boys, my boys. So we had that I forgot about. There were like 7 kids at home. So I just wanted to be mum and look after them all. And and that's what I sort of dug into and pondered what made sense for me for the next part of my life.
Yeah. Gosh, that's a big deal, like having 7 kids there when you're grieving as well.
Yeah, it was, but it was a really happy time for us. It was really special, and they weren't all, it was sort of a moving feast. Being some of mine were growing out and stepping out of the house, but as then they come back in again, and so we were just doing big pots of food all the time, big pots of, and we were hosted lots of social things, and I guess that's, and I started on the grief side, because I cook, of course, I started a blog back in the days of Blogspot.
Right.
And I started this blog where I had Mum's handwritten recipes, and I took a photo of the page of recipes and I cooked them and shared that with the family, and went through, made my way through her recipe books, cooking her food and her recipes, and rewriting them. Some of them were in ounces and pounds, and so I converted them or changed some of the ingredients, which were a bit like, oh, we wouldn't do that these days. And
a pound of butter
or lard, or
Oh, do you know
soup.
what? I love lard. My nana used to make white bread and then put lard on it. We just use it as butter because I'm from a big family as well.
Yeah, nice.
It's like, but I have fond memories of lard, but yeah, but I know it's not good for us.
No, and dripping, we used to put
Yeah.
or Mum would fry the steaks
Mm.
and then we'd put the bread into the pan that she'd fried the steaks in, and
Yeah,
used to
yeah.
love that. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. So many food brings back so many memories.
It
And
certainly does.
the smells and and sitting with the family as well, which is and sharing stories back then
Mm,
where
mm, mm.
like
It's my kind of love language for sure, is
yeah,
cooking for family and friends. So
yeah, yeah. Wow. Okay, so now you've done the blog spot. What was next on your list?
well, the thing that in real estate that I loved, and they used to give me the tricky people, the people that were in crisis or not sure what to do about their house, and
Mm,
or that the older couple that were in transition between, do we go to a retirement village, or
mm,
or big family dramas around estates or breakups or what. I loved working with those people and helping them to make the next best decision.
mm-hmm.
And I thought that was called life coaching.
Right.
So I did a little, I was fossicking around this idea of doing life coaching, and then a woman I knew had done a course, and I spent some time with her. And in that time, I realized I did not want to do life coaching, that it wasn't, I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to do something that was more meaningful, and counseling was the next natural step for me. Yeah, so that's what I did. I got myself a laptop and I learned how to navigate libraries and remembering how to write essays again, and threw myself into a pretty academic environment and studied full time. And that's when I still had this hub of young people around, and I was able to carve out a little space to be a full-time student,
Wow.
which was so fantastic and interesting. I remember at that time thinking, I don't want to do grief counseling. I'm not doing grief because grief is too hard,
Yes.
because I was so tender, still so tender with my own
Yeah.
experiences. And so I kind of kept the grief work at bay. But of course, it's now the work that I love to do.
Yes.
And I'm only mentioning those couple of people, but my children, when they went through primary school, went to more funerals than any other kids that I know, because we lost lots of little people in our world, really close, and friends and siblings. And yeah, our little family seemed to rock in and out of a lot of losses.
Mm,
So
mm.
coming around to losing my own sister and my mum was just like, I'm done with it, really.
Yeah.
This is
Yes.
enough.
Yeah.
Haven't I had enough? So I
Yeah.
have a good body of personal experiences to enrich my work with clients today. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes
Mm,
such a difference, though, doesn't it? That you have
mm,
your own experience of grief
mm,
and know
mm,
exactly what you've been through, not that you know what anyone else has been through.
mm, mm. Yeah. Well, you have good sense, feel a knowing, it's relatable. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And gives us lots of patience.
Yes, that's right. Yes, I know. And that's the thing about grief, isn't it? That people just expect to get over it and go through all those stages and
Mm,
acceptance. That's done. And it's
mm.
like,
Yeah,
no.
and you no doubt saw when I mentioned to you in this sort of arena the loss of my mother and sister. It was 2008.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and I still feel, it doesn't leave you. It's
No,
just
that's right.
becomes part of the way we live into
Yeah.
our
Yes,
lives. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, because it's a forever thing. And it's like, because I feel you know, you learn to live around the grief or alongside
Mm,
grief.
mm.
Whereas, yeah, it's people, when they come to me, they say, I need a magic pill to get over this. My friends
Yeah,
keep telling me I need to
yeah,
get over
yeah.
it. It's
Well, the
like,
doctor said it's 18 months. I should be done now. And he said, I have to have counseling. Can you just, can you, like, it's like we're doing a bit of surgery, extract that grief
yes,
from my heart. And
yeah,
so,
that's right.
oh, honey, this is going to take you a little longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't like to say it's going to be forever,
I know.
but then that's the paradox of grief, isn't it? The
Yeah,
holding on and letting go, that,
that's
you know,
right.
if I hold them close, then I get to keep them forever. But if I let them go,
Mm,
yeah, so we do that little
yeah.
dance of, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And like, you know, hearing music, like that brings up my dad. Like my dad died in 1989 and we were really, really close. But
Mm.
every time, you know, you'll get into a lift or a store and just tears will come. And I think, what's that about? And it's like, oh, it's my dad's song, right? And it's just,
Mm,
you know, it's like a visceral thing.
absolutely
Yeah,
catches you. I had this,
yeah.
I've forgotten about it. I had this terrible, well, I don't know if it's terrible, but this habit, if I saw a man sitting, like an older guy sitting on a bench somewhere, I
Mm-hmm.
often would go and sit on the bench, not like to talk to them, but just to sort
Mm.
of,
Just to be.
just to have that presence of an older person. And I've always, you know,
Yeah.
really miss having that generation above me that, you know, so I seek out friends who are older. You know, I
Mm.
love the wisdom of that. I have older siblings, which is really lovely, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. 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 And I think we're sort of losing the generational thing as well with like I'm finding with smaller families, you know, you don't have that
Mm,
support because they've moved away and everyone's
mm.
all over the world now. So
That's
it's not there. Yeah.
with the way that we're
Mm,
dispersed across
mm.
countries, or this country or across the world. Yeah.
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 Yeah. That's
Mm.
right. Yeah. It makes it difficult. But still, you know. So how, all right, you wanted to push aside your grief
Yeah.
while you were studying. So
Mm.
when did you embrace your grief or working with grief?
Well, it walks in the door.
Uh-huh.
It, it's, you know, everyone has some kind of grief story,
Yeah.
whether you label it up that way or not. But it
Mm-hmm.
could be, you know, changing jobs or moving states, or I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we notice the little losses that people are experiencing, and this is the whole story of grief. And so it's always in front of me, and I had accommodated it. I just hadn't labeled it up there. But if someone came in, I guess in the first, my first, what I did initially was to work in a very specific area,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was going to protect me from my own suffering. And so I worked with refugees
Oh,
and
right.
asylum seekers.
Yeah.
Um, so that was my first. Well, that's how I got my wheels on, my training. You know,
Yeah.
my counselling skills were developed in that environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you didn't think you were going to go into working with refugees and not work with grief?
I don't know if it was actually that conscious, to be honest,
Yeah.
but I really wanted to make a difference, and I felt that
Yeah.
was I was very passionate about the political environment,
Mm.
and the and I wanted to be part of helping, you know, embrace and assist and support new, you know, people that were coming to this country where they really needed lots of help. And I felt that that was something that I was able to do.
Mm-hmm.
Having grown up in a family which was, we had a lot of international and cultural exposure as a
Mm.
family. My father traveled the world a lot, and we had a lot of people from overseas in our family. And many of my siblings worked in foreign countries, and I traveled quite a lot as a young person, and felt that I had some ability to perhaps work cross-culturally.
Yeah.
And I loved that work. Yeah.
Wow. Why didn't you become a travel agent? That would have been interesting.
Never crossed my mind. Just want to be, I want to be the traveler. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So then what happened next? Like, you're working with refugees, and then
So I worked with asylum seekers and refugees in detention and in community in Adelaide.
right.
So that was my life in Adelaide. And then we moved to Sydney. Again, and I went to Nauru as well. So I went out to the island of Nauru, and I did 3 or 4 3-month stints out there. So you would go out for 22 days and home for a week, and then go out. It was a fly in, fly out work.
Wow.
And was quite tricky to do that with the family, but my kids and everyone had just sort of gotten, it was something I always wanted to do, was to several of my family members were Australian volunteers abroad. I was always somewhat envious of their interesting lives in different communities. So going to Nauru gave me that opportunity to work in a different country, and even though it was really messed up, the work itself I just hold so dearly to my heart. The people that I met and their incredible stories of bravery and courage and their determination and what they were prepared to forego to change the lives of their families. That was really, really fantastic work until it wasn't. And I then experienced, I guess we call it vicarious trauma. So I wasn't able to, it was too intense, and I needed to take a break from that work. But I had been doing it for, I can't remember how many years, but quite a number of years, on and off in different environments.
So when did you start your business? In
2015.
Oh, right.
So I stepped out of Nauru that year, and started a tiny little practice in Mona Vale, Sydney, which was really me renting a room for half a day a week just to see whether anyone would want to come and see me. And I also, at that time, it's funny, as I said, I had that really a lot of burnout or extra stress from the nature of that work. And so I took a job with the Macnaught Foundation, which was also quite an intense area to work in, being with survivors of childhood abuse and trauma. And that was in the time of the Royal Commission into sexual abuse within institutions. So there was a lot of activity at Macnaught for, a lot of people seeking support. And so I was part of the crew there, which was a really great, but it was a really good work, because working with the team was amazing. We were working with, your co-workers in these places are always so incredible and learn so much, and excellent training, excellent supervision. So really useful skill development for me into private practice.
Wow. So then you got half a day. You went from Nauru to Macnaught to have a break.
Yeah. Well, I was looking for a small job that I could have in tandem with setting up private practice.
Oh, right.
And they were, back in those days, they really looked after us. We're only allowed to do 4-hour shifts.
Yeah.
Whereas I think now it might be a little bit longer, but
Yeah.
so it was a tiny job, you know, it was 4
Mm.
hours and come in and go out um, and then set up private practice, um, yeah, became my true love, and working out how do I position myself so that, or what sort of work do I want to do, and that's where, you know, grief just keeps walking in the door, because grief
Yeah.
is it's like bread and butter counseling, isn't it?
Yes.
And I don't, because it's everywhere.
Yeah.
No matter what is coming, what people present, often underneath that is a story of some kind of loss that they're or change
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
they're
that's
trying
right.
to work with.
Yeah, yeah. So you expanded your practice as well?
Yeah. So initially, I had a room with like colleagues, I guess. We shared a space together, and then as you know, time goes on, there's like things change. They both of them actually moved into states, so it's like, oh, okay, so what do I do here? And I just expanded my work hours, really. Just worked a little more, and there was more work coming in, and then so I just kept working until I got out of balance again. It's like, oh, now I need to shift gear here. I don't really want to work this many hours. It's not good
Yeah.
for me and my clients.
Mm-hmm.
So the gear shift was, well, actually what happened was it was really early COVID, and a woman approached me who was trying to get her student placement done in COVID. It was near impossible. Organizations weren't taking people on. And she asked me if she could do some hours at my practice. I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe. So we gave it a go, and it was really successful. I was able to offer low cost sessions to people in the community during COVID because she was a student, but she had a lot of expertise and experience and training. And then when that time finished, her student time was like, it just was obvious that she needed to come on board. So that's when I set up the associate model of taking on a group of therapists in what we call it, you know, like an associate model, where they're kind of working for me, but they've still got their own, you know, they've got their own identity. But yeah, I provide all of the admin and the cogs that make the business run. And I have a naturopath, massage therapist as well. And yeah,
That's brilliant. So how do you, like, what's your self-care like to keep you going?
well, yoga is
Right.
a big part of my self-care practice. So at some point I have and this is work related, but I think, you know, if you can look after yourself in your work, that's pretty helpful. I wanted to give my clients an experience of yoga. So my work steered to me working a lot with trauma survivors who need more than talking therapy. And so I got to know a few yoga teachers that were trauma sensitive, had done the training, and then I did the training in trauma sensitive yoga for clinicians, and then I did yoga teacher training so that I could teach a class, and then I bring that into my one-on-one work as well.
Wow, that's awesome.
So whilst I'm taking you through a yoga practice, I'm also practicing the yoga, and therefore I'm regulating myself.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
my work these days is really about helping people self-regulate and work on their nervous system.
Your practice is very, I was going to say hands-on, but vibrant. Yeah, as you're working, you have other people working with you, like the associate.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, they've got their own client
yeah,
list. Yeah. So
yeah,
when you
yeah,
don't, yeah,
as you do as well.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, so if they came to your practice, they wouldn't only get you, they'd get somebody else, or
So when someone contacts me, I will find out what it is that they're needing support around.
right.
Yeah, so I do the intake. Yeah,
Yeah,
so a discovery call is booked and I will talk to that person. Sometimes it can be simply around availability,
yeah,
like what they're able to access, you know, and depending on who's working at different hours.
yeah.
I've moved into almost all online now,
Right.
which if you asked me 5 years ago, I would never have imagined that I would work online. I was pretty like, no way, we can't work
Yeah.
online, but now we know we can.
Yes,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
and sometimes I never ever meet my clients
yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's so funny because
in
when,
person.
yeah, yes. When COVID came along, I thought, oh no, that's my practice gone. And then, yeah, the online, I became, you become more familiar with it and it works really
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
And some people are rightfully so skeptical or unsure. So we just run it as a bit of an experiment and see how
Yeah.
it goes.
Yeah.
And it's I mean, you and I, and now we talked before we got on the call, some of the things
Yeah.
that we do to make sure that we can connect with our person on the screen.
Yes.
And there's a lot of things that we do as a practitioner to make sure that the person feels comfortable, and you know, I orientate them to my space, and
Yeah.
I want to know where they are, and we make sure that they've got a glass of water, and
Yes.
you know, and someone I spoke to recently was, you know, still had her dressing gown on, and it
Yeah.
was early in the morning session. She had a hot cup of tea, and so it can be really lovely to be in the comfort of your own home, and then
Yeah.
you have your therapist with you as well.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's right.
but not literally. We're just on the screen, which
No,
means, yeah,
that's right.
don't need to tidy the house.
No, no, not at all.
Mm.
Oh dear. Well, Jane, that feels like a great thing to end on. So thank you very much for your time.